Good morning, Earthlings. How are you doing today? Welcome to the show. FirstContactRadio.com is the place where you can find us Monday through Friday, and then a lot more. We've got a lot of shows up there. Today's our 542nd show, 43rd show. So there's a lot of stuff to listen to in the past, 2 years worth, for that matter. All right, let's get things started today with space weather. See where we're at here. Our solar conditions for our solar wind, it's still under 400. It's only at 385 kilometers per second. Our planetary K index is low. It's at 1, which is quiet, and it's expected to go more than 2. And our chance of having an M-class flare is relatively low at 30% chance. Very, very, very small chance that we're going to have anything higher than that. And our geomagnetic activity is very low as well. Now, some of the articles we have over here. It says Russia's Phobos Grunt spacecraft launched on a mission to Mars on November 8th has been stuck in Earth's orbit for the past 2 weeks after its main engines failed to fire. Moreover, ground controllers have not been able to contact the $165 million probe. Today, for the first time, signals were received from the Phobos Grunt, raising hopes of saving the mission. We have also the chance of flares. Earth-facing sunspot 1356 has developed a beta-gamma magnetic field that harbors energy for M-class solar flares. That's the reason why our estimates are about 30% chance within the next 24 hours. And here are some images of some northern lights that were seen around the Arctic Circle. Pretty fascinating what the sun can do and when it hits our electromagnetic field. And of course, on the 25th, we do have a eclipse coming up, a solar eclipse. You'll be able to see it in different parts of the world. If you go online, you can certainly find places. Just type in solar eclipse 2011, and you can certainly find all kind of examples of where the eclipse will be and where you will be able to see it in different parts of the world. All right? So that brings us up to speed with what's going on in the cosmos. Now, our next order of business is we're going to jump over to Ron Paul and his weekly update. Ron, over to you.
This is Ron Paul with your weekly update for November 21st. This week marks the deadline for the so-called Congressional Super Committee to meet its goal of cutting a laughably small amount of federal spending over the next decade. In fact, the committee merely needs to cut about $120 billion annually from the federal budget over the next 10 years to meet its modest goals, but even this paltry amount has produced hand-wringing and hysteria on Capitol Hill. And it's only cutting proposed increases. It has nothing to do with actually cutting anything. This shows how unserious politicians are about our very serious debt problem. To be fair, however, in one sense, members of the Super Committee face an impossible task. They must, in effect, cut government spending without first addressing the role of government in our society. They must continue to insist the federal government can provide Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid benefits in the future as promised while maintaining our wildly interventionist foreign policy. Yet everyone knows this is a lie. Keep in mind that the 2011 federal deficit alone was about $1.3 trillion, which means the Super Committee needs to cut that much per year rather than over a 10-year period. If Congress ever hopes to address its debt problem, it must first stop accumulating any new debt immediately in 2012. Federal revenues likely will be about $2.3 trillion in fiscal 2012. The 2004 federal budget was about $2.3 trillion. So Congress simply needs to adopt the 2004 budget next year, and the federal government will balance outlays and revenues. That's all it would take to produce a balanced budget right now. Was the federal government really too small just 7 years ago in 2004? Of course not. Only Washington hysteria would have us believe otherwise. Yet our Republican and Democrat friends on the Super Committee want to take 10 years or even 30 years to produce a balanced budget. Government spending isn't just wasteful, it is often actively harmful to stated goals. The supercommittee could simply apply 2004 spending levels across the board, and a tremendous victory for fiscal sanity would be accomplished. What seems more likely, however, is a rearrangement of the tax code in an attempt to bring in more revenues. Deductions and credits will be taken away, and the Bush tax cuts will be allowed to expire. As a result, less money will remain in the private sector to create jobs and produce economic growth. The supercommittee has an opportunity to take a small baby step in the right direction. Instead, they no doubt will take this opportunity to raise taxes and make everything worse. Increasing taxes will only diminish freedom and deepen the recession. Instead of looking for ways to hike taxes under the guise of raising revenue, the supercommittee should put forth a plan of real spending cuts to put America back on the path to liberty and prosperity. Thanks for calling this update. The new update is placed on this number, 888-322-1414, every Monday. The written text can be found on my website, www.house.gov/call, under the heading Texas Straight Talk. Thanks for calling.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, Dirk, thank you very much. This is the UFO News for today, and I have 4 stories. First story comes to us, not from Ron Paul, we just heard from Ron. First story comes to us from latest-UFO-sightings.net. Triangle UFO, shaped UFO over Blackstone, Virginia, November 2011. The triangle-shaped formation was photographed in the sky above Blackstone, Virginia this month. Witness report. Well, I reckon the Army was having war games. Nothing out of the ordinary there. They were using tracer mortar rounds, and they were falling in some rather triangular pattern. However, the picture that was taken over the city outside of the base, I caught a glimpse on the way back from the convenience store. There was a triangle pattern of lights, but it was a perfect triangle pattern, and it was different color from the mortar tracers. I caught myself over this town. I do not know if this was a stray round that somehow made itself off the base, or if it is more significant than that. I just figured it's worth putting here. Alright, here's a photo of the image, and take a good look at it here, and you could see definitely the triangle pattern that we are so used to seeing. Okay, now moving right along from there to our traffic report. This is Roger Marsh, the UFO Examiner. Says the UFO traffic report for Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011 includes moderate UFO traffic as reported in 7 selected recent reports from 7 states, as filed with the MUFON UFO Witness Reporting Database during the past 24 hours. One other case was also reported from Florida. Top news. 2 downtown Iowa City witnesses report watching 3 UFOs, 2 triangles, and a Y-shaped object over a 25-minute period. And we have, that was on the, let's see, November 21st, I looked up, this was in New York, I looked up right before entering my vehicle and seeing what appeared to be very faint but noticeable orb-like light, the witness stated. Started it as a light, red and white, then went out and just silent traveling white light. Was not shooting star, was way too low and traveling way too slow. There was no sound whatsoever. It is extremely quiet up there in the Catskill region at night. As I was watching this white orb, I wanted to film it, but it happened so fast. Then it kind of turned a deep reddish color and either went into the clouds or faded away. This one comes to us from South Carolina. While in my backyard of my family's home, I observed a bright light in the night sky, the witness stated. After several minutes, a couple of aircraft passed overhead and flew in the vicinity of the vehicle, indicating the possible UFO was above the tree level, but not at high altitude. During the course of the hour, I attempted to make contact with the vehicle with a flashlight, and contact was likely made. It appeared to respond with my signaling, and once I stopped signaling, I put the flashlight down and began to sway to and fro, and the UFOs to mimic my movements and vice versa. This exchange lasted for about an hour and ceased once I broke off contact by going inside for the night. and New England bright lights to Fremont. If it appeared a mile north of its original location in a matter of minutes, the witness stated, keep in mind, it was never moving, just hovering. Also got closer to Valley because it looked like a car's headlights. There were two white lights close together. I realized it was hanging over my workplace, Valmont Irrigation Incorporated. I grabbed my phone to get a picture, but right then it changed its colors to pulsating red. I pulled into Valmont with my eyes glued to it completely overhead. I started moving out slowly to the west. It resembled a helicopter in a way. However, the lights were spread apart like a square. I parked my car and watched it move out towards Fremont. You can see there's several more reports that come along with this. So the link is up on our page. I want to encourage you to check them out on your own. Here we have a story. It's called The Search for Life in Outer Space, and this is up at CNN. Now what makes this so interesting is not too long ago, in response to a poll or a petition put out by Stephen Bassett about extraterrestrial life, the White House responded with a very standard, there is no life out there. Well, apparently the memo didn't get to CNN because CNN is running stories about life in space. So let's listen to this and hear what they have to say.
Searching for other Earths, listening for life out there. There's no proof yet, but the body of evidence is growing. We are not alone.
But one thing that strikes you is that every time we learn something new about the universe, what we learn is that our situation doesn't seem to be all that special. And that suggests that life is not all that special either.
But it is still just that, a guess, based in part on astronomy and overload, findings from telescopes like Hubble, Spitzer, Chandra, new discoveries at a breathtaking rate, revealing the sheer mind-blowing grandeur of the universe. Consider these heavenly numbers just for a minute. Perhaps 1 trillion, with a T, that's right, trillion galaxies in the universe. Stars, you ask? Okay, how about 300 sextillion? That's 3 followed by 23 zeros. So where does that leave us with planets? More specifically, planets like our own.
We're learning something that's of fundamental importance to mankind. How frequent are Earths around other stars?
Bill Barucki is the principal investigator for NASA's Kepler telescope. Its mission, find planets similar in size to the Earth orbiting their suns. So far, it has been successful beyond expectations. Of the 1,200 planet candidates Kepler has found, nearly 70 are Earth-sized.
The indication from data that we have in hand is that small planets are common, that the galaxy makes them efficiently, so they're going to be abundant.
The number is large enough, so there must be, many billions of such planets in our galaxy. So that's been a very happy surprise.
How many are orbiting at just the right distance from the sun to support life? More than 50 candidates found so far where life might be possible. What Kepler can't do is detect life, so for now that will remain just a guess. John Zarella, CNN at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Okay, so even though the White House came out with a report saying that there wasn't any life out there wasn't any proof, we still got reports from places like CNN talking otherwise about the 50 planets that are out there right now. So be nice if they all got their stories together, but then again, we know that the media and the government don't really always have the right synchronicity with the stories. Even though the media is telling the lies for the government, they're still not always in sync. Case in point, 9/11, when CNN and the BBC announced 30 minutes ahead of time that one of the World Trade Center built number 7 collapsed, they weren't in sync then. They got their script a little too soon about the cover-up, and before the building collapsed, they announced it. Anyway, I digress. Let me get back to the UFO news. Alright, this one, our last story, comes to us from UFO Digest, and this is an article submitted by Roger Marsh of the Examiner. says that a Texas witness reports observing and following a triangle-shaped object near Austin that appeared as though it was being chased by military aircraft, according to November 21, 2011 testimony from the Mutual UFO Witness Reporting Database. The witness was a passenger in a vehicle traveling along East Sam Houston Parkway. The object was first seen just before they crossed the Houston Ship Channel. It stayed motionless for about 30 seconds, then very quickly shot ahead and maintained its position at the location, the witness stated. Distance gained in its very quick jump was, in my calculated opinion, approximately 20 to 30 miles. When the two got off the highway at Pasadena, we kept going south with our eyes still on the target, where it was in the southwestern part of the sky in the direction of Hobby Airport, where it appeared to be hovering and maintaining its position. At the Southernmore and Preston intersection, they pulled into a parking lot and got out of the vehicle for a better look. It was at this location as well that I called the Pasadena Police Department telling them of the craft. The dispatcher said that he would notify the patrol cars on the street. Within 5 minutes of placing the call, 3 Air Force planes were seen in the vicinity of the craft. And the same time, the searchlights from Ellington Air Force Base were scanning the sky. The searchlights lasted for about only a few moments, as I believe they did not want to alarm the populace due to the fact that I believe that most people, when seeing the searchlights, would instinctively look to where they were posting. Then the witness says the Air Force jets arrived. When the Air Force planes arrived, C-5 and C-17 plus an unidentifiable high-altitude plane which appeared to be signaling a very bright white light, the craft descended in position. After emitting a bright white, it was here that you could discern the shape of the craft. It was triangular in nature, reddish orange circular light located at the top left position of the craft. At this time also another man was coming out of the pawn shop on the corner and asked what we were doing. We pointed out there was a craft. He was on the phone with his girlfriend telling her about the triangle he was observing. Another man came out of the pawn shop and was asked what we were looking at, and when he saw it, he first said it was a cell phone tower, but when it moved, he saw this triangle shape, he got pretty nervous and went back into the pawn shop. So there you go. All of these articles are up at our page at First Contact Radio, so you can check them out. Let's jump away for a song. I'll get back with more news and information. Stay tuned. This is Wake Up, as usual. What if our government was responsible for some of the greatest crimes against this nation? Would you really want to know? These are big questions, but these questions deserve answers. It's time to demand the truth.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of
9/11 was an inside job. Kennedy was killed by the CIA. Jimmy Carter saw UFO. Answers to secrets you need to know. So wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up. up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Patriots arise. It's time to demand the truth.
All right, welcome back, everybody. So let's talk about some truth here. We're going to start off with our first story here. This is about the IRS. I know you guys all love the IRS. You love how once a year they come knocking at your door and they want money from you. But is it legal? There have been those who have addressed that particular issue. Aaron Russo made a film dealing with that particular issue about the IRS. And he set out with one particular intention in mind, and that was to find out the law that says you have to pay income taxes. And after a great deal of search and talking with many individuals within the IRS themselves, he was never able to find the law, because there isn't a law. You see, it's a big scam. It's a scam that's been pulled on the American people, and it continues to go on, and people believe that there is actually a law that says you have to pay the taxes, but there is no law. There is no law at all. So those who are going through the process every year and sweating it out, you're doing so because you have been conditioned to believe that this is something that is supposed to happen. But if Americans really wanted to address this issue and stand up against it, they would find out that all the things I'm telling you right now are true, and it would change a lot of things. First of all, people would wonder why they are continuing to pay something that they don't need to be paying. Now, you may say that, well, you have to pay the income taxes because it goes to pay for things in this country. No, that's not true. You know, Ronald Reagan, when he got into office, he did a report called the Grace Report. You can go ahead and look it up, Google it, Grace Report, and he found out, as you will find out when you read the report, that the money from taxes doesn't go to pay for anything in this country. It all goes overseas, and it gets absorbed into the national debt. Goes to the Fed. Doesn't go to the United States of America. So for those of you who think that the money is going from the taxes into helping this country, well, you've been deceived. And you're going to continue to be deceived until Americans as a whole step up. But the reason these things happen is because, I don't know, for some reason Americans close they turn a blind eye to the situations that are going on. I don't understand that. I just don't understand that about the behavior of people, how they do that. Because they complain about these things, but when it's their opportunity to do something, they do nothing. They say they don't know what to do. Sometimes just talking the truth to somebody else and spreading that message, sometimes that is enough. So if you don't know what to do out there, just tell the truth. Talk to somebody else. Share the truth with them. And in doing so, they might go out and share that truth with somebody else. And if that continues to happen, imagine what it would be like in the United States of America if people lived according to the truth. Can you imagine what that would be like? And imagine the example that that would set for the rest of the world if we were living according to truth. Unfortunately, we're living according to lies, a great deal of many lies that are put on us every single day. We're going to get more into that in one of our stories in just a bit. But in the meantime, let's jump back to the IRS. This is a clip of Sherry Jackson, an ex-IRS agent, and she was one of those who was featured in From Freedom to Fascism, which was Aaron Russo's film. And let's listen to what she has to say.
Sherry Jackson. She is an ex-IRS agent, CPA, fraud examiner. She was working for the IRS. She was on the fast track to success there. She was doing very well, had received numerous awards for all of the work she did, and she realized that there is no law and that the biggest fraud was the IRS.
I tried to be the best at whatever I did. So when I got to the IRS, I hit the ground running. My first year, 1988, I got the Fraud Award. It's a big Shaped in Georgia award for fraud. But I got numerous awards, and my biggest one is from the IRS commissioner himself. Back in 1995, it was Fred T. Goldberg. One of the things that I wanted to tip you off on as far as what the IRS does before I get into the story, they have, well, they had, I don't know what they're doing now, but They had what's called a Market Segment Specialization Program, or MSSP. They would take different market segments, like ministers, and try to figure out how much money you were underreporting. Let's take beauticians, for example. I'm going to audit her beauty shop. She owns the shop, and she has some people working there. Based on the assumption that the IRS has that people don't report all of their money, but they like to put all their expenses on there. So granted, all her expenses are on the tax return, and I figure out how many bottles of this and that she bought, I can calculate a dollar figure. So I'll tell Sophia, after it's all over and we're buddy-buddy, I just shock her, and I say, well, guess what? It looks like, based on my calculations, that you really brought in $80,000, but you have $50 on the tax return. So here, you owe the IRS back $30,000. What would she do? She would sign off on it. I only had 2 cases in 7.5 years where somebody actually bucked at me. People are so afraid. The government and the media have gotten you guys so afraid of the IRS that you don't even buck them. Now, mind you, she might have left some money off. Maybe there was several times where she just didn't report the cash. And maybe that's why. Maybe she has no idea how much she, quote-unquote, underreported. Maybe that was it. But they always acquiesce. They got anybody own a laundromat, they have one that will calculate, based on your water bill, how many loads were washed at your laundromat. And the point to all of this is what they do to people, and people just acquiesce to it. When I quit the IRS in 1995, and after maybe a year of being Jim Cleaver and realizing that was just not me, I hung my shingle, which in accounting terms or business terms is you start your own business. Now, you know that picture of Uncle Sam, the one that says Uncle Sam wants you? I used that same picture, and I had it really big, and I says, Uncle Sam wants your money, but I'm a former IRS agent. I'm going to show you how to get it back. You know, the people came running. And then these people start coming to me saying, I keep hearing that we're not supposed to pay tax. Or I keep hearing that the tax law is a fraud. And like I said, I was raised differently. I never would look at that person and say, you're a cuckoo. I wouldn't even think it. It was like, okay, you know, in this back burner back here, I would think to myself, okay, there's some people out there that actually think that the income tax doesn't apply to us, or it's a fraud, or it's being misapplied. But I didn't do anything about it because, remember, I'm rolling along with my little businesses and whatnot. So one night maybe in early June, one of my pastor clients called. It was night. It was about 9 o'clock at night. And she said, you know what? I think it was maybe a Wednesday night, after her Wednesday night service. She said, I've got this parishioner that just keeps bugging me about this income tax. She's talking about that we're not liable for the income tax, and she wants to talk to you. Can I give this lady your telephone number? And I said, okay. So maybe about 10 minutes later, this lady called me. She said, I have a question for you. Are we supposed to pay income tax or not? I said, okay. Do you want the cuffed answer or do you want the real answer? She said, I want the real answer. I said, well, I really don't know. You know, even though I'm a former IRS agent, I haven't done the research, but I hear that there's a credible body of evidence out there that says that we don't owe the income tax. I was okay. I mean, I took the information. I was sitting there listening like, okay. And, you know, I said, okay, this lady had a lot of information. I don't know where she got it from. So a few weeks later, she called me again, and she said, Miss Jackson, remember that information I told you on the phone? It's in the USA Today. Pull it up on the internet. Okay, so I got the USA Today. It was July 7th, 2000. And it says, Dear We the People, most citizens are not required to file an income tax return. The 16th Amendment to the Constitution is a fraud, and if you file, you waive your Fifth Amendment rights. I said, okay, that's some other stuff she was saying. Now, this was a lot of reading. But I kept reading because I was very interested, you know, being a CPA and into fraud and all that. I wanted to see what was going on. So here in the third column, it says no one has been able to collect the $50,000 reward offered by Bill Conklin to anyone that can identify the section of the Internal Revenue Code that makes a typical worker liable for the income tax. I'm serious about winning this $50,000. Okay, so it's at my desk. Basically, I just shoved everything off my desk and got the codes out, the regulations out, the tax guide I got on the internet to look at the Cornell University site, all these different things, and I started researching. And 2 weeks later, I said to myself, oh my goodness, we have a problem here. It doesn't look like I'm going to win this money. And I was sitting there at my desk thinking, this thing is a fraud. 2 weeks it took me to sit there and realize that. I didn't just look at the positive, I looked at the negative, I looked at the IRS site. All these things are going on. This thing is a fraud. Being a CPA and a former IRS agent, I sat there at the desk, I was by myself, and all these thoughts started going through my head. The first thought was, now I finally open up the codes and regulations. Because, see, at the IRS, they trained us with these little guides. We didn't use the codes and regulations. We would get one of these, and you would have to read it, understand it, and pass this little test. And all these little guides that I got, I read them, and I made A's on all my tests. And I thought, and I guess the rest of the agents in training thought, that the information that was in here was the same that was in those thick codes and regulations. But it's not necessarily the same. The things that are in these training manuals are not necessarily the same things in the codes and regulations. I learned that in my studying. In the time that I was doing the research, I also learned about the Pocket Commission. Now, I'm going to let this go around the room, but y'all got to give it back. This is the outside that I purchased of the Pocket Commission that I had. And before I left, I had the sense of mind to make a copy. This is the little badge I used to flip out at people and say, give me your books and records. Give me your bank statements. Give me all your credit cards, And, people, okay, here, even the counties, I go to the county, do it. I go just about anywhere and flip this little thing out and get whatever I want. There's a lot of power nuts out there doing that, guys. Y'all know it. Half of you already know about it. There's an enforcement pocket commission, and there's a non-enforcement pocket commission. And I started looking back at this thing. It has SER, Southeast Region. First of all, I'll read it. It has my picture up here, and it says, Sherry Jackson, whose signature and picture appear above, is duly commissioned as Internal Revenue Agent and has authority to perform all duties conferred upon such officers under all laws and regulations administered by the Internal Revenue Service, including the authority to investigate and require and receive information as to all matters relating to such laws and regulations. And it has SER and some other numbers and an A. And based on this Internal Revenue Manual, A means administrative. So I'm an administrative clerk out there on the front lines. And I'm an administrative clerk with a non-enforcement pocket commission. Okay, so I'm starting to get angry here. Starting to think about all that. I had to take bribes and get little tape recorders taped to my body and the little microphones on me and go in and take bribes from people. But, thinking about stuff like that, what they got me out here, and I'm thinking I really have authority. And this is administrative, non-enforcement pocket commission. That was one of the other things I thought about. And then I thought about, and I found out, this is another issue, a levy versus a notice of levy. This is something that I didn't deal with a lot because I was an agent and I just assessed the tax. I wasn't a tax collector. I just assessed it. So this is a notice of levy. And someone said, hey, this is a notice of levy. This is what the banks get, or your job or whatever. They said, look at the back of it. So I'm looking at the back of this notice of levy, and it says, Section 6331, levy and distraint. And then it says B and C. And I'm thinking, it starts off with B? What happened to A? So I looked up A. And here's A. And it says, levy may be made upon the accrued salary or wages of any officer, employee, or elected official of the United States, the District of Columbia, or any agency or instrumentality of the United States or the District of Columbia by serving a notice of levy. I'm thinking, but that's not most people. That's not the person that works at AT&T or Bell South or Coca-Cola. That's not most people. Aren't people noticing that the A isn't on here? Aren't they curious about it? Why are they doing this? All this is going through my head during this period of time, then I'm realizing that there's a rat in the camp. That's what I call it. But this is the straw that broke the camel's back. The Federal Reserve is not federal. How many of you did not know before today that the Federal Reserve isn't federal? If you didn't, don't be shy. If you didn't know before today that the Federal Reserve isn't federal, raise your hand. Most people don't know that. 9 out of 10 people that I asked off the street don't understand that the Federal Reserve is a non-auditable private banking cartel. They are collecting 30.
All right, that's where you're going to get left hanging because you're going to have to watch the second part on your own. But you see, there's a scam going on. And when others find out, it's kind of mind-boggling to them. She didn't even realize this, and she was an IRS agent. She admitted she didn't even read the codes during the time when she was in there. So if she didn't, how many of those other IRS agents don't even know what the code is, but will tell you, oh, you have to pay your taxes? They don't even know. And yet they will go around because they have a badge that gives them power. And one thing about people is when they get power, they don't know what to do with it, because they're so unaccustomed to having power that many times people abuse it. Now, this abuse isn't naturally because they're mean people. It's because people sometimes feel so deprived about having things that when they finally get it, they just go overboard on what they're doing. It's like somebody who doesn't have any money and suddenly has money, they go on a spending spree, and then pretty soon the money's gone. They're not a bad person. They just didn't understand the process of how it would work because they were without, and then as soon as they got, they went to the other extreme. And this happens all the time in the world. When power comes into a person's life, it's a big test, and a lot of people fail the test because they don't know how to really deal with the power. Power can corrupt if you don't understand how to use it properly, and it corrupts quite a few people, good people, all the time, and you and I have seen many examples of that. Now, I want to play part of this clip here. This is from Paul Joseph Watson, InfoWars, and this is talking about Ron Paul. Now, Ron Paul has been doing quite good out there. As you hear on this show, we do a lot of reports. Ron Paul gets downplayed on the mainstream media a lot. Why do they do that? Because they're afraid of him. Because Ron Paul keeps winning their polls. Ron Paul keeps talking about things that they are against, like the Constitution. Fox News isn't for the Constitution. They're not for your freedoms. I know they say they're fair and balanced, but they are anything but fair and balanced. CNN is not for your freedoms either. Neither is MSNBC. That is why when they give their news, they downplay Ron Paul because he is speaking against things that they are not in favor of, like the Constitution. They are all corporate entities owned by major corporations who are all connected to the governments and to the banks. They're all one big scam that's going on. And the mainstream media, well, they're the ones who keep brainwashing you. They're the ones who keep telling you how things are that are really the way things really are. That makes sense to you? Well, that's what's going on. It's a big scrambled for your brain. All right, let's listen to what Paul Joseph Watson has to say.
Thanks, Aaron. Now, these poll numbers are obviously really exciting for Ron Paul supporters because, as we know, Iowa is the key first battleground state in the whole nomination process. And the results actually tally with an article that I wrote a few days ago, which concerned the Bloomberg News poll, which gave a similar outcome. And not only is Ron Paul stronger in the numbers with this margin of error of 3%, he still overrides that. But his support is more solidified than any other candidate in that state. Ron Paul supporters are the least likely to change their minds, whereas the likes of Kaine and Gingrich supporters are. So this all bodes well for Ron Paul being able to build momentum in this key early battleground state, and it will force the establishment media to change tactics. They will be forced to take Ron Paul seriously and give his campaign the kind of coverage it deserves. They won't be able to limit Ron Paul to 89 seconds out of a 90-minute debate, as CBS News did last Saturday. So it's a very exciting development, and we've got that exclusive story right now on Infowars.com with more to come tomorrow. Now, in a related story, Ron Paul gets occupied. A Ron Paul town hall event yesterday was disrupted by Occupy Wall Street protesters who interrupted his speech to proclaim that they were the 99% while complaining about the criminals on Wall Street. As Steve Watson writes on Infowars, it's not exactly clear whether the Occupy sympathisers were taking issue with Ron Paul's campaign or simply using the event to get publicity. Some did appear to be shouting, quote, Obama during the exchange. So why are people protesting Wall Street by disrupting the event of a presidential candidate who takes virtually no money from Wall Street, while half of them, according to the polls, plan to actually vote for Barack Obama, the ultimate Wall Street puppet. I mean, who is steering these people? We reported yesterday how the Occupy Wall Street official website had banned all material from Alex Jones and InfoWars, glibly claiming that they agree with free speech unless it represents, quote, fascism. So apparently we're all fascists now. I didn't get the memo on that one. But now it appears that Occupy Wall Street protesters are targeting Ron Paul. They're not disrupting Newt Gingrich, who told OWS protesters to go take a bath and get a job. They're not interrupting Mr. Wall Street Mitt Romney. They're disrupting Ron Paul, the biggest critic of Wall Street, currently running a presidential campaign. So what's wrong with this picture? It's another blatant attempt by the likes of MoveOn.org and other establishment leftist Obama campaign fronts to co-opt the Occupy movement and to ensure that the Ron Paul revolution has no influence on its actions so as to run the whole thing into the ground. I mean, the Occupy Wall Street protesters need to get wise as to who is steering them and what agenda they are serving, because pissing off Ron Paul supporters, this sizable and hugely energetic grassroots movement that's, you know, shaken the core of the establishment for longer than most of these OWS protesters have been out of high school, is an incredibly stupid and naive thing to do. So OWS protesters really need to get wise and need to wake up to whose agenda they are serving.
All right, that's a very good point indeed, you know. We all need to get wise because there's lots of agendas going on here in the world. And if we're not paying attention to these agendas, believe me, there's someone else out there who is trying to get into your mind to get you to follow the agenda that they want you to follow. Now, I'm going to play next segment here. This is from Tool Time, the Alonia Show. And it deals with, well, let me play this. I'll make my comments afterwards.
All right, guys, it's time for tonight's Tool Time Award, and tonight we actually have two winners for you, both of whom are royalty over at Fox News. Megyn Kelly and Bill O'Reilly were having a nice little pleasant discussion on his show last night about the pepper spraying that occurred at a UC Davis sit-in over the weekend. Now, by now, I think you've probably seen the video where police walk down the line of students sitting peacefully in protest and pepper spray them just inches away from their face. That's right. That video has rightly sparked outrage across the country. 3 officers have been placed on administrative leave since that incident. Now, while most media outlets have expressed disgust over the brutality, Megyn and Bill, they played it down, to say the least.
First of all, pepper spray. That just burns your eyes, right?
Right. I mean, it's like a derivative of actual pepper. It's a food product, essentially. But a lot of experts are looking at that and saying, is that the real deal? Has it been diluted?
Oh, pepper spray is essentially a food product, Megyn. Really? I mean, that just sounds so lovely and harmless, and I dare even say delicious. No, seriously, have they not seen how a person reacts to getting pepper sprayed? I don't think they're writhing in pain just for the cameras. And no, Bill, it's not just for the eyes. It can actually damage the cornea of your eyes, and it affects all your mucous membranes, making it difficult to speak or even breathe for about 45 minutes. Some call it a neurotoxin in a can. And just to give you a hint of how hot this food product is, take a look at this chart developed about 100 years ago. It clearly shows that U.S.-grade pepper spray is the second hottest type of pepper, even if it's diluted. And to put that into perspective, it's 1,000 times hotter than a jalapeno. And remember when a pregnant woman was pepper sprayed during a clash between police and protesters at Occupy Seattle? Well, that young woman has since miscarried due to the trauma that she sustained from the pepper spray. Now, since Megyn is a mom herself, you would think that she'd have a little more sympathy for those that have been hit with this weapon, but she's not alone in her efforts to diminish the buzz around the UC Davis incident. Bill O'Reilly explained that the police should have been trusted in their on-the-spot reaction to the peaceful protesters.
It looks like these cops have room to argue that this was not excessive force. Does that mean they should have affected the arrests in this way? That's a moral discussion.
Yeah, but I don't think we have the right to Monday morning quarterback the police, and particularly at a place like UC Davis, which is, you know, a fairly liberal campus.
Wait, so is he arguing that because it's a liberal campus, then it's not okay to question the police's actions? Just a quick reminder, Bill, last time I checked, you called yourself a journalist, and it's your job to question the actions of the police. And the fact that Megan was coming out as the moral one, after not caring about what pepper spray does to people, well, that just makes this whole situation look a lot worse. It's really something when journalists act as the spokesperson for the police. So if we're trying to downplay the actions of the police at UC Davis, Bill O'Reilly and Megyn Kelly are tonight's Tool Time winners.
All right. So, I have some thoughts here on the old Bill O'Reilly issue. I see the Bill O'Reilly show often because while I'm out and about during the day, it's on. That guy cracks me up because he is such a dishonest, I don't know, as a human being, maybe he's a dishonest human, but as a journalist, he is so dishonest. And yet he will sit on that show with his smug attitude, and he will talk like all the other networks are the ones that are telling the lies, and how they are the no-spin zone, and on and on. Bill O'Reilly has lied so many times and been so dishonest on the show. Ask him about 9/11, and Bill O'Reilly will spout the typical response that the government gives, which is a lie. Bill O'Reilly won't look into any of the other information that's out there. He only spouts the nonsense that is repeated over and over by those skeptics and debunkers that don't even want to know what the truth is really going on out there. I used to do a segment on the show called Jackass of the Day. Bill O'Reilly was a regular on that, and after a while, I got decided that I wasn't going to be doing that anymore. Bill O'Reilly's just a Jackass of the Year, and from what I see, he seems to be a really despicable, well, he's certainly a despicable reporter. I'm guessing he's a despicable human being as well, and I'm really tired, Bill, of the way that you lie in the news, and people that I know listen to your lies. You should just go to jail, Bill. Do not pass go. Go to jail. Go sit in there with all the other scumbags, because then you'll be in good company. Because we don't need your lying. You're just brainwashing people with your stupidity and your despicable ways. So I, for one, would be grateful if you just would go away and we never ever had to hear from you again. Now, this article right here, this is not an article, this is a website, and there's several out there, and I would encourage you to go check these out. It's about brainwashing. This one comes to us from HermesPress.com. Brainwashing America. And if you go to these various sites, you'll see, like here, says, the con man Barack Obama is using new aggressive forms of brainwashing to change the very way Americans think and feel. This is the psychological dimension of the demonic cabal's general onslaught against American workers, just as the war on terrorism is the military's dimension in corporate crime, bailout of banks, and tax cuts for the rich compromise the economic dimension. You can go on, and you can see all kind of examples. But the way brainwashing works, look, it's real simple. Your mind has the ability to absorb information. Your mind reacts to stimulation from sound, from colors, from a variety of different stimulus out there in the universe. There have been those who have spent a good deal of time studying how they could control the mind. We all know the stories of the military and the secret organizations and the agencies that have worked on mind control tactics, and they've gotten really good at it. Mind control is now merged together with advertising. So you have the big corporations, the big corporate American companies that are all now the investment partners to the United States of America and other countries around the world. They use their tactics in the media that you watch. So when you turn on the television, you don't necessarily know exactly what's coming at you, but subliminally, they are giving you all sorts of messages for your brain, to get your brain to think in ways that they want you to think. Not in the way that you should think, but in the way that they want you to think. If you just were to spend one day, take a time out from watching the news, for watching it for what it is, and really see beneath the scenes. Take a day and just see if you can pick out all the subliminal messages that they're giving you. Watch the crawls underneath. You'll notice that the same crawls play over and over, the same keywords over and over. You know how in computers there are keywords that you use to get your website up in the search engines? Same thing. The media uses keywords to get into your brain, to get your brain thinking in certain directions, moving in their way. And if you listen to what is being said on these mainstream shows, and you listen to people who are watching them, you will hear them repeat verbatim exactly what they just said on the show. Like I said, I have friends that watch Fox News, and I will hear them repeat exactly what Bill O'Reilly says. As a matter of fact, before I call and I talk to my friends, I will sometimes watch and see what Bill O'Reilly has to say. So when I talk to them, I know what they're saying, and they will repeat exactly what he said that day simply because he said it. Because that is the power of this brainwashing tool that's out there. People turn on the little box in their houses and they think that this is the be-all, end-all. That box is doing more to carve your look on the world than you possibly realize. And there is more individuals out there controlling the way in which you think than you possibly realize. Brainwashing is a very, very real thing. A very real thing. You know, I'm going to tell this story and, well, we'll see where it goes from here. I did some trips to Guantanamo Bay. I was part of some support to troops tours, and during one of the visits I happened to be there in Camp Delta, where the alleged terrorists were being held. And we went in there, and we had our Christmas presents, and it was a Christmas time, and there was a bunch of us from the Los Angeles music scene that were out there and bringing some cheer, and we walked around. When we first entered the room, the barracks, and we were going to have dinner with them, one thing that was strange to me was how they were all sitting there just kind of minding their own business. They weren't really talking. They were just into their own activities, not really paying attention. And then when we got done eating, there was a large group of us, about 30 of us. We started walking around the room to these soldiers that were sitting there eating. And it was the strangest thing, because time after time they would all of a sudden wake up and they'd look like, "Where did you come from?" As if they didn't even realize we were there until the moment we walked up to them. Like they were all coming out of a trance. I watched this several times and just thought how bizarre it was. And then as we walked by the mess hall to get our food, they had these two big monitors playing what was like a military version of CNN. And it was on the same loop. America is no longer safe as it was yesterday. Today, America is more under threat. Over and over and over again. I was in that room for about 1 hour. That was enough for me, because I couldn't handle hearing anymore the same stuff being played over and over. They were brainwashing these soldiers to think the way they want them to think. Now, I know that soldiers are supposed to be trained and be prepared because they deal with a lot of things, but they're also being brainwashed in ways. And this was just one particular base. Imagine this going on at all of the bases around the country, then yet around the world. These are your brothers, your sisters, your friends, your mothers, your fathers that are out there that are being given information that is not accurate to what's really going on. I remember one day when one of the soldiers over there at Gitmo pulled me aside and said, "Don't listen to the news, because they don't really tell you what's going on here. They'll tell you something's happening, but it's really not. So don't listen to them because they lie." Case in point, they were talking on Fox at that point about Halliburton and how Halliburton was ceasing the activities and they were slowing down, and at the same time that they were saying that on Fox News, Halliburton was building new things there. So they were doing the absolute opposite of what was being told. And these are just a few minor examples. And I'm sure that if you talk to friends or family or people you know in the military, they could tell you tons of stories about this. Not only is it going on against the military, but it's going on against you every time you turn on that television set. Every time when there's a moment to think and you fall into thinking the way they want you to, you've been brainwashed. 9/11 was a big brainwashing. Take a moment, do yourself a favor, and really look at what happened. Once you do, when your eyes are open to that, you'll wonder how you missed all of the clues and how you were lied to for so long. You may be angry when you first do this. It may upset you to know that you've been lied to, but once you get past that, you'll be better off for it, knowing the truth of what happened, what really went on that day. Because until we know the truth about that time, the people who died really aren't getting proper justice. So out of respect for all of those who died, we need to know the truth. We need to have a new investigation of that and any other situation that is going on that people are being brainwashed from looking into. Right now there's a lot of brainwashing going on with the Occupy movements. So many organizations infiltrating with their particular agendas. And then the media is going to pick out stories and they're going to show you, again, to get you to believe that this group is all about only one thing. It's a group of lots and lots of people. They're not just about one thing. There's many things. So don't let the media tell you how to think. Think for yourself. Think for yourself. It's the best way to go. I'm telling you. If you think for yourself, you'll be much better off. All right, well, I'm back. Apparently somebody didn't like what I was saying because everything just crashed, but it's back up now. All right, let's close things out with our meditation for today. Okay, here we go. Go ahead and close your eyes. Relax. All right, I want you to imagine that you're walking down a path. And as you're walking down this path of life, you see a bunch of people walk off the path over to the cliff and jump off. And you look and you think this is kind of strange that they jumped off the cliff. And when you look around to see why they did so, you look and you see that there are others telling them they know what's best and they're supposed to jump. And you wonder why these few individuals have allowed themselves to listen to these few others tell them they needed to jump over the cliff. And why is everybody else following the few that are jumping off? And then you remember about the herd mentality. And you realize the power of the mind. And you realize that the best situation is for you to be in control of your own mind. In control of your own process of thinking. And so the best way to go about that is we sit and we imagine ourselves sitting quietly. Imagine that the entry to your consciousness is a doorway. And imagine having 2 guards posted at that doorway. And all you need to do is you give these guards, your higher self, you give them a simple task. And that is to block out the lies and only allow the truth to enter. And you have these guards checking your subconscious and your conscious to make sure. And by doing a simple thing like this, as basic and as simple as it sounds, will really make a big difference in your lives. Because by just regulating what goes in and what goes out, by just trusting that your higher self can guide you into the truth, really allows that opportunity to happen. So imagine yourself now understanding the truth about things as opposed to the lies. Imagine as you look around the world, you see the world as hazy and dark. But then as you blink your eyes and you see through eyes of truth, you see the haze clear. The sun shines brightly and everything becomes clear. And you realize that this clarity is there all the time. The only difference was you've chosen to look past the lies and the illusions to see the clarity, to see the truth. And while you're holding truth in your mind's eye, let's turn all of our chakras on. Make sure they're all activated, starting with the chakra at the bottom of the spine. And raise the energy up higher to the chakra above it, which is right at the belly button, and imagine the color orange. Raise the energy up to below the rib cage. Imagine the color yellow. And then from there, raise the energy up higher to your heart space. Imagine the color green, the chakra of love. Raise the energy up higher to the throat chakra. Imagine the color blue. And then from the blue throat chakra up to the top of your head, to the third eye, between the eyebrows, imagine the color violet. And then finally to the top of your head, imagine the color indigo, and the light connects upward. And there you are, connected above and below. And in this connection, you understand the first truth. And that is, we are all connected to a much bigger picture and a much smaller picture. That we are just one of many pieces in this grand puzzle of spirit. Let's imagine sending love out all around the world. Imagine the color green from the heart chakra going out around the world, encircling the planet in love. Send the love down into the planet itself. Send it up into the cosmos. Let's think a good thought for everybody in the world and bring our energy and attention back to the present moment on the count of 3. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. There you have it, my friends. That's our show, our prayer, our meditation for today. I hope you got a lot out of the information we shared. We'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving Day. We will be here in the morning time. Till then, have a great, safe day. I know a lot of your families are gathering around here in the States for the celebration. So enjoy your time with your families. They're very precious time. Family's life, special. It's a special thing. Enjoy your times. I'll be back tomorrow. For Dirk Bradshaw, my name's Josh Poet. Be safe. Peace. I'm out of here.